I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Comprehensive Sustainable Energy Committee, CSAC, and it's March 18th, 2021. Welcome, everybody. First order of business is to approve the minutes from the February 18th meeting, and I believe there were some final edits.
Yeah, Brad.
But I have a couple of minor comments that I have not sent anybody, but I can share them.
Okay.
The ones I sent were very small, not substantive, a misspelling here or there or something, but
Did you send them to Julie?
yes.
Yeah, just send them to me and I'll take care of that.
Consolidate them.
Yes, please. Oh, and I've got one. I got a coffee, thanks.
So my two comments are, Brad probably got this one. I think that's supposed to be Brad where it says bad near the top.
I
No,
got that one.
that was supposed to be bad, yeah.
Brad asked for an update.
Mhm.
And my other comment is, I think the first time we mentioned MMT CO2 equivalent, we should spell out that it's million metric ton CO2 equivalent. Particularly because M sometimes means million and sometimes is the Roman numeral M meaning 1,000. So especially if we're using
Okay.
an M compare, we need to clarify which M we're referring to. That and page numbers would be helpful. That's the extent of my comments.
Okay. Thank you. And Brad, you've sent me yours, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the only one thing which I said, which maybe I just bring up because I thought it was, I'm not sure if it's just my opinion or it's more important, is to separate the attachments, which are public documents, into other documents, as opposed to just pasting them together.
Oh, I know. No, there was a reason for that. We talked about that, didn't we, Doug?
Yes.
And it was because, Doug, you take it from here. What was the reason?
The feeling was that in some of the other committees, they append them to the end of the minutes. And there are two kinds of documents. There are short documents and there are very long, complicated ones. I tend to agree that we could create a compressed package of the longer documents, but sometimes it's hard to say whether they absolutely relate to some topic. They're addendum materials. So that doesn't help a great deal because I think what Brad had in mind was to be able to compress the files that are in the meeting materials folder, but the meeting materials folder includes the agenda and the meeting minutes as well. So
this is more mechanics. I was just thinking that a document, a public document, is this thing in itself. But I don't know if it's important or not. I kind of want I don't know, maybe Kate would have an opinion or something, whether it should be just stuck together with the minutes in a big document or kept separate.
In the February minutes, there were two documents that were appended to the end, which had a lot to do with one of the things that was in the topic of the meeting that had to do with the resolution. It was the actual resolution on the biomass. And I think something like that, it's important, but with other things, it's much less important.
Yeah, I mean, you in terms of uploading to the town website, you have to upload minutes. You can attach documents, like have them be appended within the minutes. Other documents you don't necessarily have to include, but they have to be made available to anyone who would ask for them. Anything that was or discussed at the meeting would have to be made available. I would say in this case with the resolution, it makes sense to include it in the minutes since you're referring to it and it was very relevant document.
Right, that was my sense. Okay, well.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any, all those in favor?
I'll abstain since I was not there.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? So moved. we'll just include, it'll just be the minutes with the edits that we just discussed.
Yeah.
Okay. The next item of business is to just review the next meeting date. It's tentatively, it's currently planned for April 15th, 2021 at 3:30 to 5:30 again. Is that going to work for everybody?
Yep.
So I think we're good. I think we're going to be shooting probably in May for I don't have the date on here right now, but it's that third Thursday of the month,
That would be the 20th.
the 20th.
Sorry, when did you say the next meeting was? I missed that.
April 15th, Thursday, April
Why is it
15th
not
at
showing up on my
3:30 to 5:30.
Oh, yeah, I have it already. Okay, yeah.
Formerly known as tax day.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's a biggie. So the next item of business is to call for volunteers for next year's CSEC chair and any open roles due to persons expiring. I've had a couple of conversations with a couple of people about this, but I wanted to make a call out to people to see if there was anybody that had a specific interest in being the chair next year. I've been in the role this is my second year, and I think I'm sort of required to change in May, starting in the May meeting.
So Doug, the transitions typically happen after town meeting. And so in past years, with the exception of last year, that's been May, but this year, because town meeting won't be until June, and the same last year, the transition didn't happen until after town meeting. So you have a little bit more time.
Okay. Is there anybody that has an interest that I can have a conversation with, and or if anybody has any points of discussion about this?
Aaron's smiling, Julie's smiling. I'm smiling at the silence. Aaron's looking very serious.
Well, there are two people that I had in my mind that I wanted to have conversations with, and I wanted to know whether it was possible to pursue them. One is with Jerry, and another one is with Karen, and possibly Sharon, if that is a potential. You're shaking your head. How about you, Karen?
I don't know that I would have the bandwidth at this time, having just started a new job. I'm finding it difficult to make it to meetings. So I don't think I could take on a leadership role at this time.
I
Okay.
nominate Jerry.
I make a point, you don't have to have the meetings in the afternoon, so that might make it easier for Karen. But I think Jerry would be terrific if he's willing to do it.
It remains to be seen if I will have the time, but I'm looking into it.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, I guess there's the question of the secretarial role too. That has been Julie for a long time. Julie, what's your disposition about that? Do you have any comment about whether you want to stay on or whether you want to change in the role?
Well, I think it's good to change it up from time to time. I mean, I think you and I took on this role, these two roles at the same time, right?
Yeah,
So I'm also completing a second year. It's just good to just switch it up, have some fresh blood. I mean,
Well, people, please think seriously about this, and we'll address it again.
Yeah.
And I just don't want the month to come up and then
Oh, yeah.
there to not be somebody to take the role.
And that's a good role for someone new on the committee that is getting to know about everything and get the details down, for example.
yeah, it's true.
Okay, let's move along. The next item of business is the planning board liaison update from Karen. Do you have anything new?
Not really. I did catch up with the last meeting. I think it was the last meeting that they had. They were basically going through finalizing the language in their bylaw, zoning bylaw amendments. And so there wasn't really anything that was relevant, directly relevant to CSAC. They did have a discussion of a new, I guess, project that they're starting to undertake and to look at, and that's looking at the effectiveness of the FAR, which is the floor area ratio in homes. This was their first initial discussion. I imagine they'll look at it more, but they're looking at this issue of the trend in tearing down smaller homes in residential areas and building up with replacing them with larger homes, and sort of looking at what that means for both the landscape and the footprint of the ecological impacts that these types of construction are having, and looking at increased home prices, loss of the landscape, and energy usage. I don't know how much they're going to get into the energy usage. They were sort of also thinking about incentives, like net zero homes, offering incentives for net zero homes. But at this point, they're really just trying to figure out what their goals are in terms of looking at this far. And it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. But they're going back and sort of mapping it onto the town's long range plan and seeing where the goals in the long range plan sort of overlap with this particular issue. So it'll be interesting to watch how they progress with that.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay. The next order of business is a CMLP liaison update from Jerry.
Okay. So the CMS building project update overlaps with my CMLP update substantially, because in the past month, the CMS Sustainability Subcommittee approved a plan with their architect, and then the architects presented that plan to the select board. The sustainability directions for the architects overall, I think are quite good, with one exception, and that is they did not commit to net zero. They committed to net zero ready, and I had a bunch of discussions with the chair over this, and I voiced my disappointment that they could not put that stake in the ground, and they worked hard to avoid it, I have to say. But I think they're coming from a position of seeing sort of two separate projects. One project being the building of the middle school, the second project being building the PV and energy generation for the school. So a summary of that project is that they're aiming for the school to open in January of 2025. They're planning for a special town meeting in December of this year to approve the debt exclusion. The overall project budget is $80 to $100 million, and that includes getting the building to be net zero ready, which means basically making sure the roof is prepared for this and the conduit is laid from the building out to the parking areas where there'll need some canopies and PV installed on the canopies. At the CMLP meeting, this was discussed in some detail, and town manager Stephen Crane basically said that in his view, CMLP should be the project manager for the PV, and in essence, that's a town project. And he said that we're engaging with a consultant to plan that out for CMLP. It's a little vague right now, but town manager sounded very much behind this. And my only concern is, well, I guess I have two concerns. One is the financials of this. I think CMLP prefers to do a PPA oriented project. And it remains to be seen whether that's financially viable. If it's not financially viable, then it's not clear what happens. The town could, instead of a PPA, could build and own and operate the PV, but that's not apparently the way Dave Wood would like to go about it. So we'll have to see how that plays out. The town manager also requested that instead of the sustainability subcommittee working with Dave Wood on this, that Kate take over that role and coordinate that. So Kate, I don't know if you have anything to add beyond what I just described.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, from my perspective, there is a real commitment for this to be net zero, and that is in the sustainability subcommittee's recommendations. The goal for the building that we've put into the sustainability subcommittee recommendations which were accepted by the full building committee last week or the week before, was net zero ready, because as Jerry said, we've had many conversations about, what should be within the scope of the building project. And the sustainability subcommittee recommends that it be net zero ready, because that's the building itself and what the building committee has control over and has budget for. But our recommendations do say that we're very much in support of it being net zero and including solar, and that will be taken on by CMLP. So the town manager, like Jerry said, asked me to take the lead on that. So I'm working with Dave Wood right now to bring on a solar consultant that will start with the feasibility of the solar for the site based on where we are in the building project, and then work with the architects and OPM throughout schematic design, which is the next phase of the building project. As the building get more firmed up, we'll be able to firm up more of the solar details. So I can keep you all posted on that, but it is very much in the works.
Great.
What's the time frame for the feasibility study approximately?
The feasibility study is planning to be wrapped up in the next couple of months. There's a middle school community forum on March 31st. So I would encourage you all to attend to get the latest and greatest on this feasibility study. As that wraps up, I can forward you the information for that, but that's coming in the next couple of months, and then that will transition into schematic design when a lot more of the details will come into play.
Okay.
So a couple more things to add quickly on the CMLP report. Dave Wood mentioned that he and I think you, Kate, are working on a grant application for a couple of new EV charging stations, level 2 and level 3 charging station.
Level 3, just level 3.
Both are level 3?
Yep.
Okay. And there's a project in town, I don't quite understand it all, but I think 300 Baker Ave is looking to do either a new building or a renovation of the existing building, and they want it to be carbon neutral. And Dave's view is he said this is an interesting project we like, but he's also a little concerned about potential loss of revenue depending on how things play out with the building. And then lastly, regarding the biomass resolution that we discussed and approved here in our last meeting, I think it was Alice pointed out that the CMLP board had previously, I think in 2019, had voted not to participate in this biomass project. So I don't know if it's the select board or CMLP, but basically they're on record as saying, no, we're not interested. But this proposal or this resolution goes a little bit beyond that. And in short, it was approved by the CMLP board with one modification. And that was at Dave's request or suggestion. The language was modified to remove, quote, exploring all legal avenues to withdraw contracts from existing biomass providers. Dave pointed out that that could play some havoc for some communities that might have those contracts already. So in short, CMLP board approved it, and as far as I know, it's now with the select board.
They approved the resolution that we moved forward?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
with that one modification.
It's actually, and I don't want to jump ahead in the agenda, but CAB discussed that last night, so I can give you an update on that.
Yeah.
I just want to lastly say thanks to Brad for introducing this last week. It's gotten a lot of attention.
Oh. I wanted to make a comment. If it works out with CMLP doing this, it seems like a pretty ideal situation. But it also makes me think, because it's like saying it's a separable project, but we can do those projects and maybe get them done at the same time. But we got 4 other schools as well. So getting some experience with getting quote for canopies and batteries, maybe we can think in terms of, the first of 4. Now that's being the troublemaker that I am, but it's
I'm right there
there's
with
a
you,
lot of
Brad.
sun coming down on those parking lots, for example.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Brad, isn't the issue is more CMLP wanting to do this and managing it?
Well, we kind of all own CMLP, so
Well,
maybe they don't want it, but
that's not
maybe
what they
we
say.
want it, and we can see what we can do to get it. I don't know. You're right.
Well, I think
sorry, we're going back to Kate's comment before. So by making it a separate study, how is it going to change the mind of CMLP?
Well, CMLP will be part of that study, so I don't know that their mind needs to be changed.
Okay.
I think what remains to be seen is
They were
just,
sort of hesitant, sitting on the fence a little bit.
yeah, I mean, the directive came from the town manager. I would say, check out the recording from the light board meeting last week, was it? Because they had a really good discussion about it. And, I think there's obviously a lot of and at CAB last night, we talked about, we totally understand why many community members maybe have some skepticism about, whether this will happen and really want a firm commitment that there will be solar on the school. In terms of the building project itself, it's still in that feasibility stage. So it's kind of like we have to start planning now, but then as we get into schematic design, we have more details and think further along in the planning. So I think from my perspective, there's a real commitment from town leadership to put solar on, just figuring out what's the best way to fund it, how big can it be? And I think maybe there is an opportunity, Brad, for using this as some lessons learned for other locations, especially since this one will include looking at solar storage with the solar.
At the same time, there is already all kinds of noise about how the whole project is exceeding budget, right?
Well, I think that was one of the reasons why the building committee and the sustainability subcommittee did not want solar
Right.
as part of the project because of,
Cost.
well, yeah, because of construction costs.
Yeah.
Lifetime costs, they would save money, but they didn't really want to go there.
The town meeting is going to approve construction cost,
Right.
right? That's really the challenge, right? I mean, that's really the argument to be made.
Yeah.
And if you put solar as part of a construction cost, something else is going to have to give. Like, for example, they talk about a big amphitheater to host town halls, right?
Yeah. Not big though.
Never big enough anyways, right? I mean, like, different discussion, right?
Is there any implication with CMLP that if they were to take on a project like this, where they actually run the PPA, that would require them to staff up in a way that's differently, would it change their business model or add to their business model?
I think there would be some change. My understanding, and folks can correct me on this if I'm wrong, my understanding is all our solar in town, all the meaningfully sized solar is managed by someone else, and we take advantage of it through a PPA. And that's a fine model. It's not the least cost model, but it's a fine model. So I think the big question for CMLP is, in the town, is can we get a PPA at an appropriate price? And if so, then that's the way the CMLP will go. If the PPA pricing is too high, then CMLP and the town will have a hard decision to make.
I know Brian probably wants to correct you, Jerry, because he has his hand up, but I will just say, I don't think that it's been in any way decided that the middle school solar will be a PPA. I think that's still on the table, the financial model for how that solar is going to work.
Somebody call
Mind
him
if I
Brian.
jump in? So the meeting that happened this month with the CMLP board and the CMS building committee really clearly laid out who's going to do the solar on the site, which would be CMLP. And I have total faith that they will do it one way or the other, and they'll find out what is the best financial mechanism to get that done. I suspect that will be PPA, because the landfill and W.R. Grace, those sites are the utility scale solar, where a third party received a lot of incentives that the town couldn't qualify for, which enabled them to offer us a price that's quite low on a PPA style. And there's a buyout in the PPA. So it's a sliding scale, and Dave has it calculated when is the best time to buy out the PPA, because I believe it's a 20-year contract, but there's buyouts throughout each year, and somewhere, 11 or 12, maybe 15 is the best time to just buy the system outright, end the PPA, and have ownership under the utility for it. But that's the model for getting things to happen at CMLP, because ratepayers pay as they go and use electricity. And so capital financing for energy sources versus, a substation or something else for distribution, that's where that PPA model comes in well, also with incentives. I kind of rambled there for a bit, but you get my point. When these systems are deconstructed, they'll most likely be under full ownership of CMLP. So the idea that a PPA is, we're going to have solar installed by a third party and they're going to get the value, I think there's a lot of value there for the utility.
Do you think there's apt to be a trend in the future where what's happening at the middle school is replicated in other larger sites around the town that require the same kind of oversight?
Yeah, my personal opinion is I believe it will become a model. I know that Fenn School tried to put a big solar array on, and Dave and CMLP had to say, if you're going to do that, you have to put on storage. That I believe that killed the project. But CMLP didn't just come in and say, you have to do storage. They actually gave them 3 different options around how to deal with the financing of storage, all the way from an easement and so forth. But in the end, it was difficult for Fenn to do that. I could see having an experience where CMLP does solar and storage on a site integrated with the school to get to net zero at that scale. I could see them replicating that in many other parts of the town. And I can't speak for the board about what they'll push for, but I know I'll push for that.
Thank you. Is there anything else to be said about the topic of the CMLP liaison update right now? If not, I think we should bring David Berg on.
Okay, well, I have my presentation on a flash drive, and if somebody would walk me through how to get it into the system, that might make a certain amount of sense. Otherwise, I'll have to tell Jerry, next slide, please. I don't know if you want to hear that over and over again.
That's okay. I think he's got it and he can share it.
Yeah, let me share it here just a second.
Okay, well, in any event, thank you for letting me be on the agenda for today's meeting. I will be talking today about why hybrid ventilation is an excellent choice to be part of the HVAC system at the new Concord Middle School. And now let's see if Jerry can bring it up.
Yeah, so hang on a second. I've got to change something here. I'm not sure what.
David, so I'm taking the minutes. I'm wondering, can you just let me know your title or your organization, or I'm sorry, maybe I should know, but.
I am just a concerned citizen here at 20 Darton Street in Concord, Mass, who has been in trying to get involved with indoor air quality in Concord schools for over 20 years. So I've learned a few things, and so I'm sort of a repository for institutional knowledge, and so I have an obligation to share it so that taxpayers do not see their money being wasted.
Thank you.
So I'm going to need to log out and log back in to get this going. So bear with me.
Okay.
Does Sharon have it too? Or does someone want to send it to me?
You know what? I'll send it to you, Kate. That may be the easiest way to do this.
Seems like we should be able to. I think Sharon's about to.
Yeah, I have it, but I'm when I try to say start slideshow, it says that there's an error.
An error in the slides.
Yeah, so although I opened it previously, so I don't know why it would be a problem now.
Now, how do I?
Okay, Kate, it's on the way to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, basically, I'm here because, as I understand Concord's comprehensive sustainable energy committee, your task is to assist the town in identifying, designing, and implementing projects focusing on energy efficiency.
Yeah.
So it seemed appropriate that I share with you what I've learned about indoor air quality in the Concord schools over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And so sitting in at okay, here we go. Excellent.
Thanks, Kate.
Congratulations.
And so I guess I said that. So next slide, please. So for the new middle school, they have as a stated goal that they want to provide a healthy indoor environment in the most energy efficient manner possibly. And in addition to that, they've set a requirement that the indoor air should not exceed 800 ppm. And if one does the calculation and assumes an appropriate generation rate for middle school people, that corresponds to a minimum requirement of 25 CFM of outdoor air per student. And I think there's some things that we can learn from the Alcott School that are relevant to this discussion. So if I could have the next slide, please. So when the school opened, I guess in 2004, then there was a hot spell in 2005, and this brand new school overheated significantly. And then Chris Whalen, being familiar with me and my relationship to indoor air quality and HVAC systems, and asked if I would do an assessment to determine why the overheating was so severe in this building. And so if I could have the next slide. So what the problem was, there were a number of problems, but one of which was in an effort to save money, they decided not to provide mechanical cooling, or as many people would say, air conditioning in this building. So that meant, because they had an airflow geometry where both the supplies and returns were in the ceiling, the air coming into the space being warm would merely travel across the ceiling and leave the room and provide no ventilation for the students down below. And I mean, there was a lot of air moving. It was spec for 6 air changes per hour. In addition to that, there was internal leakage and there was re-entrainment. There was a problem with snow being drawn in, so they put a cowling over the intake. There was a problem with noise, so they put a cowling over the exhaust. So part of my assessment, I did a tracer analysis where I released tracer into one of the spaces and then measured the concentration of the tracer gas coming back into the room. Now, I have a certain amount of experience in that, commissioning air-to-air heat exchangers of the rotary wheel type. And typically in an appropriate setup, I see less than 1%. In this building, I saw 60% of the air coming back into the room. So clearly, I would recommend against using these packaged small rotary wheel air conditioners. I have some additional information. California is noticing that they're problematic as well. So, the other thing I noticed at Alcott was they have an emergency generator. Should the power go down, they fire up the generator, but if the wind is coming from the southeast, the discharge from the emergency generator would just be sucked back into the building. How is that relevant to the middle school? Well, the middle school wants to be completely fossil free. So hence there would be no generator available. So the question is, how would the new middle school function in the event that the electric grid went down? And from my perspective, it's far more probable every year that the system is going to get taxed and we're going to have another power outage. Hopefully not as bad as Texas, but I think we need to be prepared. So another thing we could learn from this experience, if we go to the next slide, is that it's far more efficient to utilize displacement ventilation as opposed to mixed air geometry. And this slide, which I'm sorry, Sharon, I didn't label the vertical axis, but it could have been any air contaminant. You release an air contaminant and displacement ventilation is just far more efficient at diluting and removing it. The way it works is air is released low into the space at slightly cooler than the room. And then the heat generating occupants will create a little zone of isolation. So if they're shedding viruses, the likelihood is they'll be captured and removed, as opposed to well mixed, where if somebody's shedding viruses in the room, it will be well mixed and distributed to just about everybody else in that space. So the lesson learned was to consider the geometry. So if we could, okay, no, we're still on this, sorry. So the more effective geometry is displacement. And so fortunately, I was on the integrated design team for the Willard School. Displacement ventilation was included, and it appears to be obviously successful and hopefully will be continued in the new middle school. Next slide, please. So the question then is, what is the most efficient design approach for providing generous amounts of ventilation for the least amount of energy? And I contend that it's hybrid ventilation. And so what is hybrid ventilation? Next slide, please. Oops, where am I? Okay. Now, hybrid ventilation combines passive ventilation with mechanical ventilation to optimize indoor air quality, thermal comfort, and energy conservation. So the system would condition, unlike some natural ventilation systems, my recommendation is that the outdoor air actually be conditioned. And I think this is an excellent opportunity for using a heat pump system, perhaps even a ground source heat pump system, although I would defer to Sharon because I'm sure she knows a lot more about that than I do. But then there would be something on the roof to facilitate additional airflow through the building if natural forces were not enough, and maybe just a fan, a solar powered fan ultimately, or wind catchers or solar chimneys. There's another of options available. Next slide, please. Now, speaking of utilizing natural forces, also earlier, it's not a new system. In fact, this approach has been used by termite mounds for a very long time. And so when it considers biomimicry, as was demonstrated in a building in Africa called Eastgate Center, not only was there natural ventilation, but the energy use in the building dropped significantly. So if we could have the next slide, please, Sherry, thank you. But another benefit, perhaps the strongest reason for going with a hybrid ventilation system, is the resilience it would provide. The ability to function if and when the electric grid were to go down. And this is consistent with the Article 23 from the 2018 town meeting, where the goal stated, and I can be corrected, but the goal is to create local resistance to climate change impacts on the built environment. And so, next slide, please. And there's also another benefit, just the ability to use natural forces, the sun, the wind, and thermal buoyancy, such that on its own, air would just move through the building. And so why don't we go to my last slide? And this is my last slide. And my intent here is to point out that the new building is an excellent candidate for the use of ground source heat pumps to provide the needed thermal comfort. I suspect that the cooling load would be best served by the ground source heat pump approach. Question would remain, however, whether there would be the expense of a runaround heat recovery coil, which, by the way, cannot permit reentrainment and recirculation. But, so just a heads up, guys, that there's going to be some hard questions, and I wanted to give you as much time to think about not only heat pump systems for residences, but I think this building would be an excellent candidate. And so I wanted to give you plenty of time to start thinking about how that might be achieved. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my vision, how to prepare for the future, kind of hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And I also hope humbly that this committee would be willing to recommend a hybrid ventilation approach for the new middle school. Thank you again. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, David.
So I have a question, David. Have you spoken with the sustainability subcommittee of the building committee, CMS building committee?
I did have, I sent an email to Matt afterwards saying, I understand that indoor air quality, healthy indoor environment is a goal. How do you plan on achieving that? And he said, the only thing we've looked at so far is displacement ventilation, but haven't gone beyond that.
Okay.
But as you people have, he said, perhaps at a future time, you can come and share your vision with us. So they're a little bit more open and welcoming than perhaps I've experienced in the past.
I have a simple question, which is that 800 parts per million level, the level where kids have a hard time paying attention above that, or is that number sort of what's the thinking about the level you should be at for a new build?
Well, I think that decrements start occurring above 1,000, but it's a little tricky because you said at 800, but outdoors is increasing. And so I assumed clean air outdoors at 420, but over time, as the outdoor level goes up, that incremental difference between indoors and outdoors gets smaller. And so you need to provide more and more ventilation as the outdoor air concentration goes up.
Yeah.
So I'm being, if I were to take a more realistic outdoor air value, they'd have to provide even more ventilation to make sure that that 800 was not exceeded.
I have a question that might really be for, is it Jerry that's been attending the CMS meetings? Just
Yeah.
what is the current status of the design?
So that's a great question. I kind of know what it is, but I don't know what terminology to use. I think they've just,
30%, 50%, 90%?
oh, it's more like 30%, I think. Kate?
It's technically just in feasibility. So we're not even in schematic design yet. So all that we have, just visually speaking, is like a total square footage and a space summary. So X number of square feet for office space, X number of square feet for each, team of classrooms, and a general sense of the concept of like, it's gonna be 2 floors and look like this kind of, that's where we've gotten so far. So we don't actually have any design yet. This is my first building project, so I'm learning as I go, but I'm told that in schematic design, which is the next phase that we'll be going into in the next few months, that's when we start talking more about systems. So looking at life cycle cost assessment for air source versus ground source heat pumps, for example. So I know a lot of us on the sustainability subcommittee have been eager to get into some of those details, and the design team is kind of telling us that that's in schematic design. They did a presentation, the middle school building committee came to the CAB meeting last night, and there are some good slides that I can share with you all that outline kind of what decisions got made in each phase, which I think is really helpful in thinking about, like, oh, I really want to see this. Well, this, you can kind of see when in the process does that happen.
Also, I think at both this meeting and an earlier meeting, they showed a concept of how they're comparing different options. And the leading option right now was optimized for solar orientation and minimum building envelope size, which I think, in my opinion, would be highly compatible with the hybrid ventilation approach, especially if you look not only at the massing, but the cross section through the building, where there would be the opportunity for air to come in and go up via interior atriums between the double loaded corridors. So I think it potentially would be compatible based on the sketches I've seen.
So we're not too late.
We're not too late.
Did someone mention the public forum that's going to happen at the end of next?
March 31st.
Okay, good.
And I just sent you all an email with the info. But we just saw this just this morning, some more detailed kind of sketches of the feasibility and of like the rough concept. So I imagine they'll share those at the forum, and those slides will end up on the building project website if you want to take a look at kind of where it's at right now in terms of a conceptual design, I guess it's called.
Okay. Is there anything else that we want to say about this right now?
I think Pamela Dritt has a question, Doug.
Okay.
Thank you. It's Pamela Dritt, 13 Concord Green, Unit 4. And thank you, David. What an interesting and helpful presentation. And thank you for all of what you all are doing. But yesterday I was at the meeting too, and the presenter from the middle school project mentioned they were going to have a diesel generator. And I asked a question about that. Why is there going to be a generator, diesel or otherwise, instead of battery storage for backup? And And I thought solar, battery storage, heat pump, all of that works together in a system that you can only do in a new building. I think you might, David, they're planning to put a diesel generator for that school right now, because that's what they said. So please don't be shy.
Could I clarify for Pamela?
Please.
All right, so they have regulations that they do have to have a generator, and it's there for emergency power. It's not to power the building on a normal basis. And CMLP, when I asked at the light board meeting what the scale of the storage would be, she could only tell me that it would be 400 to 600 kilowatt, meaning they only knew its ability to provide power. They didn't know the duration yet at which they needed the battery size to be. So the megawatt hours that is in that storage has not been defined yet. And the larger that is, the less need there is for a generator. But there is regulation that they are required to have backup power for a certain duration. And so once the duration gets clarified, then it'll become more clear if they need the generator or not.
Well, let's hope that they realize the importance of getting to that point.
Yep. Even if they end up investing money into a generator, it will run so infrequently that it may have more value than taking more effort to get more minerals out of the ground to make a larger battery pack. I mean, it's.
I don't think so. Everything I've read about that so far shows that the recyclability. In fact, I just invested in it. I'm just about to invest in a company that does that.
Let's move.
Let's
The
see.
investment will pay off.
Yeah, so let's CSEC get back to their conversation, but I think we're too early to be concerned about the generator. But that's my feelings. I understand you differ. That's
We
okay.
could spend more money on the battery pack.
Yeah.
So we don't need the generator, period.
Yep, that's what most conversations boil down to, is money.
Yeah. Investment versus spending.
This is not a project that CSEC is working on. We're hearing about it and thinking about it, and we can't, it's not something we should spend time talking about.
I think that going back to the sustainability committee that the CMS committee, the subcommittee that's under the main committee, is a good starting place to go to. Thank you, David.
My pleasure. And I'm
Okay,
available if there are any more questions that you didn't think of immediately. And I'll keep you posted when I'm talking to the subcommittee at the middle school.
that would be
building
great.
committee.
Thank you. Now, the next item that we have on our agenda is an update on the Cooler Concord Mass Energize work from Brad.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Let's see. So so Cooler Concord is the local Concord site that we are sort of soft launching to engage residents, and it hasn't been publicized widely. We're holding off in order to get more people to use the site and leave testimonials. And I would really love to have all members of the committee check it out, give your feedback, and create a testimonial. It should take about 5 or 10 minutes. Right now, we did get a few more from a few people, but I think the site is looking pretty good. But getting people to use it is like pulling teeth. unfortunately. And that's going to be our
Thank you.
issue going forwards. The next thing we're going to be doing is what I want to do is with our local group is to assemble larger lists of service providers for all the things that people might like to do, like solar PV, weatherization, and heat pumps. And what we're planning to do at Mass Energize, that's the nonprofit that I work with that built the sort of the framework of the platform, is a few things. We've had some strategy talks this week. Now, I talked through these in more detail, but we're getting lower on time. We want to, let me just show something. I want to get your reaction to it, if I may. Okay, so I'm just taking the screen here. This is sort of the functionality. Did it show my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see the green thing that I sometimes see, but this is sort of the functionality I'd like to have within our site, where people who want to do solar. Well, we're not going to. I don't want to endorse one installer or two installers or my favorite installers. I want to be able to list all of them. And CMLP has these lists of everybody who's gotten solar rebates in town. And there are ways that we can do this so that we bring in the ratings. So you wouldn't bother calling this first provider, but you'd see this one with the contact info, and you can contact them directly. And you could sort based on this and distance to the site. So this is the function, one of the pieces of functionality that we want to implement in the next couple of months. And I'd love your impressions about whether this is, whether you think for regular people this would be useful, a good added value for the site.
So, Brad, I mean, I guess one question is, why would you feature a company that only has 1 star? I mean, no one's going to pick that.
Well, we could set a criteria. I would immediately set a Better Business Bureau criteria. Only feature companies that don't have unaddressed complaints.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily think these ratings. These are Google ratings. So they come through, you can access them through an API. You can talk to Google, get their ratings for these companies, and sort based on them. We could set a threshold, but we want to be as fair as possible and allow people to decide for themselves.
But no one's going to go with a company that's got 1 star. They're just not. Yeah,
well, maybe they're destined to go out of business. We can put at the bottom.
Which website are you talking about, Brad?
What?
Solar
Which
Wolf
website?
Energy?
So this is so the Cooler Concord website is our is this, oh my God, what happened? Notice the beautiful pictures on the website now. So this is the platform. Maybe you haven't seen it, Hani, where there are, among other things, actions that people can take. So they can you can decide whether you want to put solar on your rooftop or install a heat pump, things like that. Right now, the platform has service providers, but we haven't really done anything with that. And it doesn't make people on the municipal side comfortable with us picking our favorite service providers. But this feature, this is where we could have a nice long searchable list, maybe even pulling in the map from Google as well. And so you know where people are. And what we're trying to do is develop this to be more and more useful for more and more people. So a couple of the, you see I'm signed in with my profile here. and I can look in, see how many actions I completed and some carbon savings from that. This is the kind of thing you can do if you create a profile.
I like that. Very good.
Right now, the other things that we are working on doing are to make it more of a social network, allowing certain amount of user-to-user communication if people allow it. So you could let people know what you've done and ask questions for people who say they don't mind being contacted. We're thinking of showing action impacts in different ways, not only tons of carbon, but trees or vehicles or whatever kind of they can relate to. Putting some what's new functionality on the homepage, and also implementing a baseline carbon score. So you do you could do a carbon calculator for your family, and then it would basically say, these are some of the actions you could think about, sort of to help people think about what to do. I'm having a lot of fun working with some interns on this stuff, including we have a CCHS intern going to do some programming next month. Got a lot of communities going now, including Acton, Lexington, and Boxborough, and a few others, and including 4 cooler communities, which are out west, which are initiatives that are based on our Cooler Concord Fair a few years ago. So this stuff can live on for those of you who are part of it. That's kind of my update, but I really would love to have feedback from any of you who want to take the time to go in and say, you know, I don't really like the way this is, or I like this feature, but it could be a little bit different. This is the kind of stuff which would be really, really useful to me, to us all. That's my update, and I will give it back.
Brad?
Yeah.
I'm still a bit hung up on the service providers. Did somebody kind of curate that list of service providers? Because I guess if I went to a website like this, I'd be looking for guidance and not just like, here's all the ones available in your area, because we're not allowed to give a recommendation. I'd want somebody to be kind of making some kind of selection for me.
Right. And that's the trouble a little bit. But the guidance that we can give is this many households have used this service provider. So you could say, oh, Boston Solar has done 20 jobs in Concord. This kind of information we could give in an unbiased way that would give you some guidance. The other bit which could help is if this links to a testimonial, or you can see somebody in the town that's been on the site that used them and contact them and ask them.
Yeah, I mean, the review gives you that, right? I mean, but the review is dangerous, right? Be careful with that, because that's the number of people that responded to this with an algorithm that Google has, right?
And the one that has 1 star only has 1 review. So.
Exactly, that's the whole point. And so I think it doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad supplier.
Right.
The other thing about Google reviews is they're subject to manipulation.
Exactly.
There are companies out there who will provide reviews just for money, even though they've done it's they're basically fraudulent reviews.
Yeah.
I think the idea of having the number of installation they had is probably the most objective sort of way of looking at it, you know.
And that information has already been collected. I'm sure Brad already knows that the Mass CEC list that before I got my solar, that's where I went, and they list all the supply, especially with Concord having a municipal light plant. I only wanted to deal with somebody that had already done installations in Concord.
Yeah.
And they will list the number in town and the size and the medium price per watt.
Yeah.
Which is very helpful.
I'd like to hear what Brian has to say. He's been advising me on this for ages. But
he had his hand raised a moment ago.
So yeah, what is the most, what every person I talk to about solar in town, which I talked to many of them, the number one thing they want to know is, who do you recommend as an installer?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not what installers are out there. Now, the town has a legal obligation not to have preferences. Your site, Brad,
Does not.
does not. And it would, I'm very, so one of the big early hopes of your initiative is the ability to list preferred and local installers for technologies, because that is what people need, and the town can't legally do it. You could do it through the number of installations they've done physically in town, is a non-biased way of doing it. But you do want to see people use reputable solar installers. Energy Sage is kind of known for promoting the cheapest solar installer, and I warn people against some of those because I've talked to residents who've lost tens of thousands by dealing with a company that decided to go bankrupt. They never got an array. They put down major deposits. So reputable installer lists is really what I'd like to see your site do, rather than taking data on reputation from other things like Google or from, should be word of mouth. Anyway, all right, I'm talking too long again.
So there is a balance between, so nobody would think, none of us would think that Google ratings is perfect. And there have been, it hasn't had the kind of criticisms of some rating services, but they're, they can be manipulative. But I'm just, I still think there might be value there in a well-rated business that you can go and read them, and because people are used to doing that, it does have some value.
I would rather see that be kickstarted with a survey of residents with solar and who they used as an installer and whether or not they'd recommend them, as a starting point to get people to share good stories and bad about installers on the platform.
That's a really great idea.
Because I think instead of using a national or an aggregated rating system, to have the rating come from information from residents. It's, you trust your neighbor more than you do Google and their algorithms and so forth.
But, we have 9 residents signed up to the site right now.
Yeah.
And so there is a paucity of data to start with that we have to deal with. But I want to talk to you more about it.
Okay. Later.
Could you not approach everyone in town who's had solar installed and just ask them to fill out a short survey with a sort of a
especially with some people who might have the list, but there are privacy concerns, of course. You don't always have that list, but
CMLP, I assume, will not hand out the list of.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I
State
don't know
will.
if that's right, but I would guess that so.
So the SREC programs, they have not the addresses, but the names usually of the residential sites will tell you who it is. But they list by town what installer was used, the price per kilowatt or per kilowatt, and other data. So if you take the SREC 1 qualified unit sheet and the SREC 2 qualified unit sheet, everything before 2018, you have a complete look. I think I did that just before the end of 2018, I think. So I already may have a pretty good list.
okay. Great.
Okay, so let's move along.
And I want everybody to have a profile.
Right. I put it in the minutes, Brad.
The next item on the agenda is.
Doug, I think David has a question. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about solar. Has the committee ever looked into adopting the Massachusetts Solar Access Law as a bylaw here in Concord?
Ooh. I don't know what that is. You mean?
some redress against setback requirements in order to utilize in a tight lot. There is a draft Massachusetts solar bylaw that can be adopted by local communities if they so choose. And I was just wondering if that's been looked into by the committee. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, there was back in 2008, there was it 2008? Yeah. There was quite a lot of solar siting committees and other town committees that looked at setbacks and zoning and other aspects of solar. And that was way back when, but those bylaws exist for the town. So the state bill is something different. That's something imposed at the state level, but the town already has those kind of setbacks and other requirements already established.
Okay, let's move along.
I'm just going to bring up the other restriction that exists is, I don't believe houses in historic districts cannot put solar panels on the side that faces the street.
I think they should, yeah.
So I wanted to get an update of the select board's disposition on the biomass resolution. I believe it was adopted, right? But what's the status of that, Brad?
It's probably going to go to the select board at the next meeting or soon, because it was the CAB considered it yesterday and it hadn't already gone to the select board.
Yeah, CAB agreed to support it. So I would suggest since CSEC started that resolution that I know the light board, supported it as well and made one edit, but that someone from CSEC take the lead on just adding in that CAB to that list of supporters in the beginning, and then getting that on the select board agenda for them to give a final vote on whether they want to approve and send it off.
And present to them, do you think?
I think you would probably want to ask Linda what her preference would be. It might be worth just, introducing it and explaining why you put this all together and brought it to CAB and CMLP or the light board.
Kate, out of curiosity, since we're talking about biomass, this is not exactly 100% the same, but similar to this company on Baker Ave called Trashology. They do waste to energy. I just saw them. I mean, they took over some kind of abandoned warehouse and they opened up, I think, in the past 2 months, and I just happened to be driving by there. I'm just curious if anyone knows anything about that. I mean, just in our backyard, I'm not sure what they're doing exactly.
Do they have a smokestack?
I didn't see any, but maybe they're doing research there. But it said waste to energy.
Oh, yeah. I saw that too.
Right? I mean, there is only one way of doing that is burning something, right?
Okay.
Well, the biomass resolution is moving forward at any rate. And that's the main thing I wanted to touch on.
Yeah, I would just say somebody does need to take the lead to make sure that does move forward and make sure that the edits get to the select board for them to put it on their agenda.
I'm happy to do that, but I need to get that the latest version that I saw last night that had a couple of minor edits.
I got that from Brian, I think. The edits were just from the light board. CAB didn't make any.
Okay, right, okay.
Yeah,
Can
so
we get a copy of the most current version of the resolution then?
I can send that out.
Good.
Can you send it to the whole the CSEC board, or are you going to send it to me, or who?
I'll send it to you, Doug, and you can send it out.
Okay. Okay. The next item on the agenda is to get an update from Janet as to whether there's any stuff going on with the EV working group.
Sure. Yes, there is stuff going on. There were several things that came up at the meeting at the beginning of the month. There was one, that we've been counting the number of electric vehicles, and there appears to be a problem in that they discovered using VIN data to figure out how many people have EVs in Concord. And some of that programming was incorrect and had some hybrids as plugins, and they weren't, but that will be corrected. And Kate, I think, was working on calculating how much carbon dioxide emissions have gone down with the number of vehicles, but that's also tentative. Next thing is the EV Ready pilot program, which is the program for multi-unit dwellings, will continue next year. And they have budgeted $24,000, and they're expecting to pay $5,500 for a site visit to work out the plans. And the multi-dwelling units that have more than 5 living units and have people committed to buying electric vehicles will be prioritized. What else? April 22nd, there will be a Drive Electric Earth Day, which will be a joint municipality event. It will not be live, it will be virtual with a YouTube event and sign up, and I don't have any more details on that.
Okay.
What did you call that event? The Drive Electric?
A Drive Electric Earth Day.
Okay, Drive Electric Earth Day. Thank you.
How do you drive virtually?
Well, you can have a virtual event where people talk on YouTube.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the CAB update. And I have to admit that I did not go to the meeting last night, but I have done some research on and listened to the recordings of the meetings from February. Two important topics that happened in February that I wanted to at least touch on, but I also thought, given that it happened last night, that Kate, maybe you could just touch on what occurred last night. Just to start with, the two areas that I was particularly intrigued by was the discussion that was going on that was about the RECs and looking at how the RECs work for CMLP that was given by John. And he had given a presentation in December about it, and they had a lengthy discussion about how effective they are, and they were talking about the impact, how they don't have the impact that we think that they do a lot of the times, and it's rather challenging. The CMLP purchases bundled power with RECs, and it's best to buy the class 1 RECs from the area, the local area in New England. So if you look at the recording of the meeting, you'll find that there's a lot of interesting discussion about how the RECs work, and they're rather complicated, I will say. And I don't pretend to understand all of the details, but I thought that was an interesting topic area of that meeting. Another thing I wanted to say, the second thing that was of particular focus in the meeting was Kate's review and report of the greenhouse gas inventory. That was an amazing work, Kate. Looks like you put a lot of effort into trying to consolidate all that down. Maybe you could just represent it a little bit. And one of the things I was wondering was, if we want a copy of the statistics that you had presented at that, are they available?
Yeah, I presented on the greenhouse gas inventory update I did for 2019. I'm actually just finishing up all the reports that go along with that. I had just put some of the graphs in the slides for the CAB meeting. So when that's done, I'm definitely planning on sharing it with you all. So that'll be in the next week or so. I'll have all the final reports. So you can see all the numbers.
Is that something we could maybe have at the next meeting?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to put it on the agenda, I'm happy to share an overview.
Would people be interested in that? Okay. One of the things that she showed in the meeting on the 24th were how we had met our 2020 goals, or had come in with reduced energy reduction. You had given the numbers 29% as opposed to the goal of 25%. And
yeah, that's actually since changed. I found a couple of errors in the calculation, so it's actually 22%, just shy of the.
So we're even lower down. We had even greater reduction in the 2020 period.
No, it's less than I had shared at that meeting.
22%. Okay.
Yeah. I can just share the full update with you all at the next meeting.
I think just a comment I wanted to make was one of the things that although things were looking pretty good for the meeting the town goals for 2020 year, you mentioned whether or not we were on track for the 2050 goals. And it was interesting because you hesitated in being able to say emphatically that we really are on track, because there's so many things that could derail that.
Yeah, I would say that while emissions are going down, and I can give you all of the details, that we are still far from our 80% by 2050 goal. And if we use the same type of energy in the same way that we did in 2019, even with 100% carbon-free electricity, we would only reduce emissions just about 30% from our baseline, which is far short of 80%. So there's a lot of work to do to electrify everything and be more efficient.
Quite a challenge.
I can't paint a rosier picture for us all.
That's why we're here.
That's part of the job.
Brad, I like
I
Brad.
understand.
Yeah, I do too.
That's why we're here.
There's a temptation to paint a better picture, but it isn't always a better picture.
Nope.
Okay, that was my brief but short update. The next item on our agenda is the update of the Clean Comfort campaign, which is involved with which is CMLP has been working on. And Brad, do you have any more comments on that?
There's the program is pretty much up and running. They've been working very hard at it. Janicetti has been put a lot of time into making this work. So the two coaches who spoke here, I can't remember if it was last month or the month before.
January.
They're up and running and talking to people. there's a nice new website called ConcordCleanComfort.org, which you can check out. And it is pretty darn good. It gives you, 5 steps of what you do now, next, and stuff, gets you connected to the coaches. And make sure you go to ConcordCleanComfort.org and not CCC.org, which is actually gets you to dial a prayer. But there it is. There's a growing number of contractors on their approved vendor list, which is a good thing. I think there's 10 now. And, not just one or not just a couple, which is nice. I'm very enthusiastic, but I think everybody should check out that Concord Clean Comfort campaign. And if you have been sitting on the fence thinking, I wonder if we could use a heat pump, click the box that says contact a coach now. And these guys will get paid to come and talk to you about, where you could put a heat pump.
What's the website?
ConcordCleanComfort.org. That's just an alias to a really nice website. Now, Kate, did you make that, or Jan, or some combination?
I made it, but Jan's been making some
Okay.
tweaks to it as well.
Did you say ConcordCleanComfort.org?
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't go anywhere.
Is the vendor list of 10 vendors that are recommended on that site?
It's very much, I think it's accessible right from that site.
I'm curious, so this is a .org, it's not a town website?
It is a town website. The .org redirects you to the town site.
It goes to concordmass.org all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So it's okay.
It
Got
just redirects to the town website.
Actually, I can report that accidentally I bumped into this because I was trying to figure out if there is a to-do list somewhere about what to do. And I selected one vendor who came this morning. Actually, I was able to schedule a vendor and everything, and he's going to help me go through the coaching process and everything. So really interesting.
Good. See?
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to thank you for listening to me, but I have to bug out. So I just wanted to thank everybody and say goodbye, and I wish you all well. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
David. Bye-bye.
And actually, interesting part is that how to choose which vendor, which is why we got into the discussion before, right? I opted for choosing the vendor who was who actually had the best presentation on their site and was fairly close by.
Okay.
So because the vendors are all over the place. There's some Needham, Lawrence, and a bunch of different stuff. But it's sort of interesting how you choose which one do you want, right?
Of course.
Is there anything else to be said about the Concord Clean Comfort campaign? If not, let's move on. And the next one is very brief, but Kate mentioned to me in the last week or two that she's got the brochures or the pamphlets that we developed before the COVID time started last year. And she's got about 400 of them still in her office to be distributed. And the question was, how did we want to distribute them? There's a thought that some portion of them, at least, or maybe all of them, but maybe a portion of them would go and be put at the Concord Library. And I wanted to get people's thoughts on this topic.
The background is that I've been collaborating with the library on some programming and with their sustainability planning, and they're one of the few town buildings that are kind of open these days, and they have a curbside book pickup that is very frequently visited, and so they offered that we could put the pamphlets out at the book pickup, and they would bring them in every night and put them back out and let us know if they're empty and all of that. So I thought that might be a good way to put those to good use, and you never know who's gonna pick one up when they're grabbing a book.
Yep. That would be great.
It's a great idea. Just to add, I have the nice pamphlet holders that you ordered, Kate. I still have those. All these things that have just been put on hold for a year. So I've got these nice kind of like, I don't know, clear perspex or whatever they are, holders for the pamphlets. And I also have posters, which I think are about 18 by 24 of our main page, the diagram of the house and the little. So we got to think about where to put those as well. I think I have about 12 just rolled up, waiting for their distribution somewhere.
Yeah, that's a good reminder, Julie, because I think a lot of the work we've been doing with the library on sustainability planning, one of the ideas that has been for the library to be more of a hub for sustainability information and have displays and that kind of stuff. So I think once things are more opened up, they would be probably very open to using those and putting those.
Oh, that's great.
Do you think ultimately, Kate, is the library going to add staff that are sustainability focused?
I don't know.
It's an interesting.
Because as a sustainability hub, it struck me that there is nobody in the library that's particularly focused that way. Anyway, do we want how many of them do you want to start by putting over there?
I mean, I would think I'll just give them as many as they want. And if we run out, that's a good problem to have, and we'll figure out how to print more when we need them. But we have them already, so we might as well get them.
Okay.
And probably both libraries, if they. I've been thinking of getting back in touch with the green team leader at the school, Priscilla, and seeing what they're up to, but maybe they could be involved to distribute flyers to high school students or something. I don't know what we could get creative.
Do you want some of the posters to go to the high school students?
I don't know how interested high school students would be in this. Do you? I mean, I just feel like Holmes is not really.
Oh, some are.
I don't know. Go over their heads, I would think.
You might be right, but not the green team.
Yeah,
not the green team, no. The select few.
We could have a little brochure set up in the library at the high school.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like there's consensus that we should give some to the library. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
Give them a big stack. And if anybody else wants any, let me know. I will drop some off.
Who's the coordinator there that you'll be working with? Do you know?
I've been working mostly with Renee Cunningham. She's one of the reference librarians there. She's great. Together on Renee is her name. We worked together on
Cunningham?
Yes. We worked together on the kind of resilience programming that we did under the Climate Preparedness Week the last couple of years. And she's been taking a really active role in the library's sustainability planning efforts. So a lot of good opportunity for collaboration there.
Maybe we should invite her to one of our meetings sometime. Okay. The next item on our agenda list is a discussion update about further development of the Concord heat pump installation case studies, and to review the case study schedule being worked on presently. I know Brad had shared a spreadsheet that he had that listed some of the assignments that had been associated with this. And in the first mailing, the email that I sent out about the draft agenda, I had links in it that went to that spreadsheet. Do you have that, Brad?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to review that?
Sure. Let me take the screen again. So hopefully this will be visible.
So far, Kate, I sent you one case, but have you gotten any other of the draft cases or final cases?
No.
So,
I'm ready to submit.
right.
I
So
couldn't
we
figure
got
out where to put it on Google Drive.
right. So the way I've set this folder up is to be, we can put material here, but I've set this up so that I'm the person that maintains the spreadsheet, just so we're not collaborating online. And we do have, Julie has done one, and Janet has done one.
I've done two.
Done a couple, and Doug,
I've done two now,
right.
but I
And
have only sent one to, I'm finishing the second one.
Yeah, I'm most of the way through my first two. It took a little while. I think it takes about 4 hours, probably, if you're a fairly good, decent writer, to do the interview and write something up, maybe even faster, but I'm pretty damn slow with it. But I'm enjoying it. I was working on it today in a rush to get it done for the meeting, and I realized it takes a little longer than I had. But I will be through my first two, in a day or so.
Can you show the place that I had thought that we were going to put the draft case studies, or the ones that are finished, was in the case studies folder on the CSEC drive.
Right. And that's where they are.
But I have only seen mine and maybe one, yours, Brad, there.
Well, some got uploaded today.
Okay.
And some are in progress. I reorganized it a little bit to just keep the studies away from the project description, but it should be pretty clear where you can put stuff.
Can everybody put the ones that they do on that place? Save them there?
Yep.
I think so.
Okay,
If
good.
they have an access problem, just let me know.
Brad, I sent something to you.
Yeah.
Today, and I was thinking, if if you already have it, maybe you already put it up on that drive, because I did.
It's
did?
up there and it looked great.
Yeah, so he was great to work with. And Doug, I worked with you on your house.
That was very helpful.
Is that submitted? Is that?
That's the one I submitted, yeah.
Okay. And
one of the questions that Janet and I struggled with a little bit was, how long, Kate, do you think in words your average case would like to be?
That's a good question. I can pull up Sharon's and tell you.
I already looked at that. It's about 700 words. Your one, the one that you wrote up on Sharon's, Kate, was about 700 words.
Most of the ones I've been working around are falling out at around between 1,200 and 1,400 words.
That's long. That's long.
About 2 pages.
Yeah, but when I put it in the design, it will be more like, the 700 words is what, up to 2 pages of a PDF with a picture and the numbers. So, I would say, if, Doug, I haven't done yours yet, but I think I think it'd be better use of your time to collect more of the interviews and then fill out the outlines for more case studies than spending a lot of time trying to condense it down.
Okay.
To fewer words. Let me do that. I'll chop it up and make it shorter. So I would say, make it as short and concise as possible, but don't spend, extra hours trying to finesse it to fewer words. I can do that.
Okay.
So I was going to suggest that we go deadline driven on this project, because it's, it's a busy time. It's hard to get around to stuff, but we have enough people and there's a finite number of names. And if we said, we would like to have this done in June, which means having the interviews done in the next, 6 weeks, or even sooner, and try to punch out a drafts for the mid-May. I think we could successfully get to the end of this. It would be a very nice project to wrap up at least to a publishable state. Can always add on.
So I had a couple of questions. I'm just trying to, because I think I missed that conversation. I was not on the call when you started this. So this is to be published where?
My understanding was it was going to be on the Sustainability Town website.
Okay, and so we have to ask people to make sure that they're okaying the idea of putting their name and address and everything.
Yeah.
And
Everything I would run every final thing by the homeowner before it gets published.
Okay. Okay.
And that's what's taken longer for me on the second one, because I've been corresponding back and forth, and he made recommendations for a few changes and just minor things, but often very important to make him feel comfortable about what we were saying.
Sure.
Yeah, and I would say, in terms of running it by the homeowner, run the outline by them with just the information. Make sure you captured the information correctly, and then let me finesse the write-up, and we can send that to them for a final approval. Because if I chop it up and revise, we still want to run that by them again too. So if you want to try to minimize the amount of times you're running it by the homeowner, then I would say do a first round pass after you do the interview, say that all these details look right, and then let's write it up and send them the final one to approve.
Brad, how many interviews do you want each person to do?
Well, good question.
I mean, if you want to have a deadline.
There's about 15 to 18 more names that don't have a name next to them. And if
did you want me to do Joe Mueller, for example?
Certainly if he is he electric?
He's got solar panels, and he's electric, and he has a heat pump.
Yeah, that would be great. So if 5 of us pick 3 names each, we could get this done. Or if all of us pick 2 names each, we could get this done. And the Q&A part is fun. It's a good way to get to know and to understand what the people have done. So it does take time. And the time estimate I mentioned of the 4 hours is for kind of writing it up, because I kind of like to do some of that, but the way Kate describes it, if you write it up really rough, just trying to get the points across, it can be a lot faster.
One of the things that I did that was, I guess it was necessary to do, but the first time I did one, I took pictures of some of the equipment and the model numbers of the equipment that was involved. I had to dumb it down, take all that out, and make it much simpler, because it's just, there's no way it could fit into the profile that Kate had specified, but it becomes less useful in some regards. Well,
save that stuff in a folder there. If you get some good pictures, even if they don't end up in there, there might be some value for reference.
Yeah, but some of this stuff is it'd be interesting. I'll try a shot. I'll try with Ed next door. And when I ask a question about operating cost prior to and before, that's you have to dig out information for that. That's not readily available.
I'm finding the cost data is really hard to put your finger on.
Me too. I've had that. I've struggled with that. And I don't know how comfortable people are with kind of having it in print, how much they've spent on their.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's fair enough. You can ask them directly, or if they are, or
Mhm.
right, because I was agonizing with that today too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, I mean, if they're, a ballpark would be better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
Because you think about people who are considering heat pumps, like they do want to know what it costs. They do.
Well, one of the things that I found out about the heat pump, in the two cases that I've been involved in so far, there was an early, and as part of the heat pump approach or into getting a heat pump, there was a weatherization step that happened in most cases a couple of years before the heat pump was put in. And the weatherization part in certain cases was a fairly expensive proposition. It was like a remodeling of the house or updating of the house so that it was weatherized properly to be able to work well with a heat pump. And so there's like two costs. There's really the cost of the weatherization steps or the remodeling part, which could be pretty expensive, and then the cost of the heat pump.
Yeah, I think whatever information you have, right, it doesn't have to fit into that table. That was just an example, right? If they just say, yeah, it cost me in the tens of thousands, but I know that I'm saving money, like, then we can put that quote in, right? Like it can be as much or as little detail as homeowners have and they're willing to share.
I think what's important is the authenticness of what people are saying. You know, it's truthful, and sometimes it's not as pretty a picture as you would like it to be, but sometimes it is.
Yeah.
The one I just finished, Jim Terry, he was really open. They had all the numbers, and I think he was really, Andy provided photographs. I've never been to his house. I'm not even sure exactly where his house is.
It's like next to Paul Jameson's.
I don't know where Paul Jameson's house is. I know it's on College Road,
Yeah.
but it's a significant road, but
Yeah. You don't bike that road, Janet?
I have biked that road. I have. It goes uphill.
As the cases arrive in the case study folder, do you want me to forward them to you, Kate?
I don't think I have access to that folder, and if I do, I promise you I don't look at it regularly. So the best way to get something to me is email.
Yeah.
As they show up, I'll send them to you.
Yeah.
Send
Brad, I
them
sent you an email.
when they're ready. When they're ready for me, send them to me.
Brad, I sent you an email volunteering for 3 names.
Okay, great. Excellent. Totally great. And
Who? Karen, are you in volunteering?
I sent 3 names to Brad that he could put my name next to.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I will say one thing. I want to share this project with the Heat Smart Alliance and try to get an intern to get these started in other communities. So this is kind of a nice exercise to see if we can get it done and what people like to share and stuff. But I think all the towns will need this. That's the way I look at it. Hopefully we can get someone working on that.
Okay. Well, we've got 10 minutes, and
Bob, did you just join us, or did I not see you before?
I apologize. I was tied up.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to know when you came into the meeting. It's like, oh, there's Bob,
No, I figured I'd make an appearance.
Excellent.
Better late than never.
Bob, do you have an update just for us, because we know you're leaving?
Yes, I do have an update. I'm confirmed to be departing on the 31st now.
Wow.
But I mean, I would love to be able to participate from Africa if it's feasible.
Wow.
Or I don't know if that's allowable. It depends on the time of the meetings. I'm 5 hours different right now.
Can you
So this
zoom
would be
in?
doable. Because it'd be 10:30 at night there.
Well, if you want to try to come in on the April 15th meeting, you're welcome to try.
Okay, it's the same time, 3:30?
Yes, it is on the, in the April meeting, and I think probably the May meeting will be too.
All we
It's
can do
May-
is
it's
try
May-
at this
May
point.
20th is the May meeting,
Okay, April 15,
and May 20th,
May
Thursday.
20. Yeah, let's see, May. Got it. Okay, 3:30 on both of them. We can try. We'll see how it goes.
And
Thank
once,
you.
once, assuming some point we get to in-person meetings, there's only one person allowed to be a remote person, but if that's you, then that works.
No,
Is
and
that-
obviously I'm happy to let somebody local participate as well, but I have no idea how long I'll be able to be there and if I find work there, et cetera. It's up in the air for me right now.
Gosh.
Is there talk about changing back to the, where you can only have one remote person?
I have no idea what the plans are for open meeting law.
So nothing, okay.
The world has changed, Doug. You
I
know,
was just surprised to hear that we were conceivably going back to the way it was. Okay.
I have a question. I was just looking at the CSAC drive, and I don't know where the case studies are. Where do I find
Active projects.
active projects? Active. Okay, I see active projects.
Inside of active projects is case studies.
And do the photographs go in there too?
If you want to make
Yeah.
a folder for them, I would put them, I wouldn't put them in that, put them in a subdirectory that you create under it, maybe named with the same name as the case study.
Look in cases. There is a folder exactly like that.
Okay, yes, I can see the one so yeah, so it's got the photographs, it's got the document, it's all there.
Got it.
Very good. Thank you, Brad, for putting it there.
We have a couple of minutes to talk about CSAC's strategy going forward. We had just wanted to touch again on further discussions of what our longer range plan was going to be. How do people feel about the format that we've been using the last 2 months, where it's a sort of a walking through of a lot of these updates, and there are always hot topics that are kind of like of importance that need to be addressed. And then there's usually something that's a major project that we're working on, like the case studies, which will perhaps go until June, but then we'll have to reformulate where we're going beyond that.
It works.
It does, but I feel like we often shortchange some of the things that
Yeah.
could benefit from a longer discussion, like
Right.
the 5-year campaign.
Right.
Would you like to have more discussion in the next meeting for a longer period about the 5-year campaign?
Was this something that came up at the last meeting or
Well,
where is this one coming from? Just because I missed last
Well,
week.
just to summarize, I mean, I think it started in November when we collapsed the web work that we were doing.
to some extent, it's morphed into the Concord Clean Comfort, and how can we
Okay.
work in conjunction with that? What value can we add? Because there are places where we can. So
You know, I almost feel like this is becoming more of a watchdog committee and an engagement committee, but we haven't been able to do the engagement in the last year so much.
Oh.
But we are very much interested, I think, in staying abreast of the topics that are important to the town that need to be communicated.
yeah.
Is there any kind of structure that you can, that anybody can imagine to, I mean, do we have to, if you look at, you know, what we say we are in the last annual report, it's a little different than what some of the things that we've been doing is.
Right.
I don't think I ever saw the last annual report.
You probably wrote it.
I think you did.
I wrote the one the year before. I didn't write the one for this year.
But I think our activities and focus has changed mainly because of COVID. I think, you know, we can go back to being an more of a community engagement committee when things get normal again.
I feel I felt a little bit like that some of the things were like rolling balls that are just rolling ahead with each meeting without having enough clarity about who or what is responsible for what is going to happen. But I think the case studies have been a low level, but a good thing.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the case studies is actually a very useful project, which fits in well with the clean comfort effort.
Right.
So maybe we're good.
Right. I've noticed there's a little bit of overlap in the sorts of things that we're talking about with NCAB. For example, we had the great presentation today, which I thought was very interesting about the ventilation, but it was on a subject that we could think about and urge another committee to work on. But it does take some time, and I've noticed that at CAB, of course, they have some other good presentations going on that then we get to relate here in our committee. So to the extent that we have, you know, people working on stuff like the EV working group or the clean comfort or something that we can bring to the committee and get useful feedback, I think that's as good as we can do now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, well, it's now 5:32 and we're over. Is there any public comment that needs to happen? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to bring the meeting to an end?
There is a public comment.
Oh,
That is
let's
just,
put a hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please,
Never mind, it was a mistake. Sorry.
Pamela, if you have something more to say, please, we urge you to speak.
oh, that's dangerous. No.
It sure is. I just wanted to say it was difficult to find the website you were talking about, Brad, the Clean Concord. I could find, when I Google Clean Concord, I got the
yeah.
Facebook page, but not, I had to go back to the add Mass Energize and then guess that I got, it took me a while to find it. It
Okay,
doesn't come
so-
up on a Google search.
Yeah,
So
we
I
gotta,
thought you might want to know that.
the search engines aren't working as well as we need to, and we're talking about how to fix that. We need to do some IT work to make that work, but
I will send
But
everyone
I
the
did
link.
find it, so it was wonderful.
okay.
I will send everyone the link.
Yeah.
It's Concord Clean Comfort. It's a bit of a tongue twister.
I found
And
it,
then dot what, you know?
.org. And then it redirects you to a town heat pump page.
Yeah, I did figure it out. It's just, it took a while. And so
Search will,
all
will-
of the websites that you guys mentioned, I want to go to.
Okay.
search engine will have a problem with that, Brad. Because it's
So do you know about this stuff, right?
yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
There's a solution here. I know it.
I think it's hard to make that work because it's a page that's part of another website, so it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But there may be a few tricks you can try.
Okay. So I'm going to call you about that.
All right. Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody. Do I have a motion to end the meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay.
Seconded.
All
Thirded.
those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
You all.
Good to see you all.
See you.
Thanks, everyone.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Take care.
Bye.